Okay, those on the line are going to start the meeting now.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Traffic.
You're just on time, John.
Hey, Lisa, I'm just going to say that you stay muted until the meeting ends.
Oh, I'm going to amend the agenda to have, I have that. I'm going to put Sal at the beginning of policies, before policies.
Sure, you're gonna move them up.
Doing the opening, the whole reopening discussion.
Open up.
Yeah.
Move it up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's not forget this. This remind me.
Good evening. We'll call the meeting of the Cromwell Board of Education to order at 7:01 p.m. Alessandra, could you do roll call, please?
Mrs. Campbell? Here. Mr. Flanders?
He's on the phone.
Mrs. Kelleher?
Here.
Mrs. Lamberson? Here.
Here.
Mr. Matsuo?
Here.
Mr. Menendez?
He might be late, but not here yet.
Mrs. Murley? Here. Mrs. Post? Here. Mrs. Russ? Here.
Thank you. To those that are on the phone, if you could just mute your line while you're not talking, we're getting some feedback. Thank you. All right, approval of agenda, additions and deletions, and chair's review of agenda highlights. So on tonight's agenda, we will have some discussion on some policies. There'll be a robust discussion on the reopening plan, and we'll be voting or potentially voting on the school calendar for next year. So there is just one change to the agenda. I would like to move up the reopening discussion to after superintendent's updates and before policies. We're pleased to have Sal Neshi here from the Cromwell Health Department, so we'd like to move that discussion up to the beginning of the meeting. So is there a motion to amend the agenda? Motion by Catherine. Is there a second? Second by Lori. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Motion by Selena, second by Jen. Comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, celebrating our faculty staff. Dr. Macri.
Good evening, everyone. This evening we have Ms. Cochiola here to celebrate our Cromwell Middle School staff and students, and she's on her way up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very proud and pleased to present to you. This is Molly Sales, who's our CMS band director, and we're going to just give you a quick insight into what daily band practice looks like for our kids and how we had to adapt to, keep our music program going and keep our kids safe at the same time. So this is Molly Sales. So I'm also honoring her as well for her commitment to think out of the box and to get the kids out there practicing. She had jazz band today after school, and she was able to social distance them. So she's, again, working really hard to keep our kids musically included. Go ahead,
Ready?
Steve.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
Middle school. Please enjoy some rehearsal footage from today. Third. K-12 Music Department Chair, Ray Sinclair, and our Superintendent, Dr. Enza Macri. A final note to mention that even in these unprecedented times, teachers and staff are finding creative and effective ways in teaching and connecting with students. Thank you so much for your support. Have a fantastic year.
So she said, she thanked everyone for their support, but it's you can see also little snippets of what goes on behind the scenes as the kids are out there practicing. You can see kids out there having their mask breaks, and we get deliveries. So, they get to perform under the tent. So it's been a great experience, and they're still out there. They're still out there. So that's why I wanted to celebrate them this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's dedication.
Thank you, Ms. Cochiola. I'm trying to find the positive in everything, and the best part is coming to work and seeing our student back and forth and going to schools and coming back and seeing our students outside and waving to them, and they actually know who their superintendent is. It's pretty cool. I call them our talent, and they really do get so excited. And Molly does a phenomenal job with them, and it's just been talk about like taking lemons and turning it into lemonade is exactly what she really has done with the program. I do advise that if you come to the Board of Ed or the middle school at all, drive very slowly because there are children everywhere taking mass breaks and playing their instruments. But it's pretty cool seeing, and our kids are so happy.
Thank you. Is that celebrating our students as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Next, correspondence.
We did receive one letter, and I didn't see it until now. I've been in meetings as usual, nonstop all day long, from minute to minute. However, we will be addressing a lot of these questions when Mr. Neshi and Mrs. Hansen come to the podium so that we can talk about what happened at Cromwell High School, why we needed to move into a hybrid model, the necessary precautions of what we have to take for HIPAA, and how much information we could release. And then the rumors fly anyway. I've heard anything between 200 to 300 students to 50 staff members being quarantined. We would not be able to run our school if we had 50 staff members quarantined. So we'll tell you the facts, and we'll try and respond to as many questions as we have. And I honestly believe that this is a discussion that should be had as an open discussion with all of you about what Mr. Neshi and what Ms. Hansen and Ms. Grandy we've been learning. We are on 3 different calls every week with DPH and CSDE. So everything keeps changing. So the letter is in reference to the high school recently being forced into going into high school hybrid, and then talking about social distancing and precautionary measures. And I will have Misty Fiore come up and talk about all that as well.
Okay, thank you. Next, on to public comment. So, as I mentioned at our last meeting, we're trying to incorporate public comment back into our meetings, and thanks to our tech team, we've been able to, hopefully make this work through Zoom. So there are four people, Steve?
Well, I have 3 are in out of the 4.
Okay. So can they hear us?
Yes, I believe each one can. Can you give me a thumbs up, Kelly, if you can hear me? Yep, okay. So first up on the list of order is Kelly, so I'll unmute her for...
Okay, before we unmute
okay.
anybody, I just want to read the rules
Sure.
for public comment for those that are commenting, and thank you for doing that. It's been a while since we've had live public comment, so I will read the rules just as a reminder. We welcome and encourage public comments at our Board of Education meetings. To make sure that our meetings are conducted respectfully while encouraging public participation, following are the rules for public comment portions of our meetings. Thank you for your cooperation and participation. Individuals are welcome to address the Board of Education for up to 3 minutes each during the public comment portions of the meeting, but board members will not generally engage in dialogue. The Board of Education chair may, at his or her discretion, extend the time for public comments. To facilitate efficient sharing of your comments, we encourage you to share any comments you may have about instruction, discipline, or learning materials first with your student's teacher, then principal, and followed by the superintendent before bringing the comments to the Board of Education. However, if you do not believe your comments have been addressed appropriately, or if you believe they should be shared with the Board of Education for any other reason, please feel free to do so. All comments must not include personal attacks, and comments cannot be discourteous, threatening, vulgar, or otherwise inappropriate. The board chairperson may, at his or her discretion, curtail any public comments or terminate any such individual's privilege of address at any time if they violate any of these rules, violate reasonable standards of decorum, are boisterous, or are repetitious. The Board of Education reserves the right to limit public comments to particular topics. So for each person, if you could just state your name and address when you are unmuted. So first is Kelly Wilson.
Okay, Kelly, you can go ahead and unmute when you're ready. Hold on, Kelly, I can't hear you. 1 second. Hold on. Go ahead, one more time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, I'm Kelly Wilson. I'm at 18 Congress Drive here in Cromwell. I thought I'd be brave and turn my video on because I could see you. So I thought but I'm gonna read from what I wrote because I'm nervous now. So good evening. As a member of the Cromwell Public School community, I wanted to have the opportunity during this Board of Ed meeting to share some ways that I have been educated through my interchanges with the superintendent in regards to my concerns since August as to how the school district has been handling our and how our children have been educated and socialized during this COVID-19 pandemic. So, so number one, I learned about the position the superintendent was placed in this summer to plan without much directives and support how our children will be educated. Number two, I learned how the superintendent and the local health department representative collaborate daily to review health data to utilize in the decision-making process as to how to plan for our children. Number three, I learned about the details included that contribute to how these decisions are made, such as school sports management, how to provide appropriate PPE and cleaning products to staff and students, how to contact trace, who to quarantine once a positive COVID case is determined, providing substitute teachers for teachers whom are quarantined in addition to those who require a sick day. Again, all these decisions made with little to no directives from higher ranking authorities. And, you know, just in conclusion, although the members of our school community have varying opinions, and despite what my opinion attached to the superintendent's decisions are, I felt it important to state that I believe the best efforts are being made to adhere to what I feel should be Cromwell Public Schools' common goal, and that is to provide a free, appropriate public education in a safe environment, doing the best to decrease the spread of this extremely contagious virus and keep the infection rate in the schools from rising. Management of the infection rate, I believe, in the schools will undoubtedly affect the spread to the home environment and infection of vulnerable individuals. And so I just felt that that was important to share. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time. Okay, next is Lisa Ann Campbell.
Lisa, if you can go ahead and, can you hear me, Lisa?
I can.
Great. If you could just state your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisanne Campbell. I currently reside at 31 Valley Run Drive right here in Cromwell. And this is my first attendance, so I didn't write anything in advance. But one thing that was a little bit disturbing to me when the children were all in remote learning is the method of capturing attendance. That disturbed me a little bit. Right now, I don't know if other folks have this issue, but there are currently several absences on record which are inaccurate, and I have spoken to specific teachers to address that. Some of them were addressed, but not all of them. And I just wanted to understand that how that will be addressed going forward, especially if we end up going back to remote in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And we won't address that specifically right now, but that may come up during the course of our discussion on the reopening. Or if it doesn't, Dr. Macri or someone will get back to you. Thank you so much.
And finally, I think Colleen.
Is Rohan not on?
Colleen, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Colleen Sokolowski, and I'm a resident of 61 Washington Road. I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Dr. Macri and the Board of Ed and Mr. Neshi, and especially all the employees of CPS for their very thorough planning that led to the successful reopening of our schools. I'm also the parent of a junior at CHS who was one of the students sent home to quarantine for 2 weeks. I read Adapt, Advance, Achieve, Connecticut Plan to Learn and Grow Together, the addendum, and their references to the guidance from the Centers for Disease Control to understand how we are defining a close contact. I'm disappointed that we have not taken into account the strict adherence to mask usage that is taking place in our schools. Our teachers set high expectations that students would comply with mask requirements, and they have all done so. In ignoring those mitigating effects of mask usage, we have caused our high school to revert to a hybrid learning model. Our hybrid learning model has a lot of downsides for our students and our teachers. The teachers are expected to split their attention and efforts between in-person and virtual learners. The block scheduling plan only allows for students to see their teachers in person once a week. And this past week, I've heard my students struggle to be included in in-person conversations taking place in the classroom, despite the best efforts of our teachers. You know, a very specific example was her description of how difficult it was in AP Chem to have her teacher at home, kids in class, some at home, and having to organize breakout rooms and Google Meets between the kids in class and kids at home. It was mind-boggling. And how can we expect to retain stellar educators like Dr. Spino when we're asking him to operate under those conditions? And by ignoring risk mitigation from masking, we've created some unintended consequences. For example, I'm currently in the process of comparing my student's transcript and her current schedule to the course clusters in the CHS program of studies to determine the number of classes, the minimum number that she could participate in this year, so as to limit her chances of being quarantined again, which I'm trying to balance with the outside-in view of a college admissions officer so that she does not appear to be an unmotivated student and can still be considered for a competitive college course of study. And this is not a calculation that a parent should have to consider. The classes that we would first consider to be dropped would be band and chorus. She loves those classes, but they're not worth the risk to stay in those classes and potentially be sent home again. Another unintended consequence that everyone should be aware of is that there were only 2 senior girls on the cross-country team. Both were quarantined and had to miss their senior night. One senior parked at the end of Holly Hill and stood outside with her senior night poster and a school flag draped on her car because she was expressly not permitted on school grounds. And I wish I had a picture of that to share with you. The other senior wanted to do something similar, but was already feeling punished by the quarantine restrictions and was afraid that there would be repercussions. There would have been no risk to our community if those students had been permitted to attend an outdoor event, socially distanced and masked. And just as a note, I have gotten permission from their parents to share those 2 examples. And I'm sure that we did not mean to create these situations, but you should be aware of them. So please, I would say in summary, consider the mitigating effects of our compliance with masking when our quarantine procedures. Please modify the quarantine procedures to allow for student participation in extracurriculars where social distancing and masking can be utilized. I would urge you to also push back on state policies that are overreaching in their impact on students. We have created a very safe environment in our schools, and that is being ignored to the detriment of our teachers and our students. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Colleen, and I'm sure a lot of that will come up during the reopening discussion. So is Rohan on?
No, the only two other are Dr. Spino and Katie Piro. I don't know if I said that right.
Yes.
Okay.
Presentation.
So they're on later.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a success.
So far.
So thanks to the tech team for putting that together. Much appreciated. And we'll have that going forward. Okay, report from the student representatives. We have our high school students on.
Yes, we do. Our middle school students only join us for the first meeting of the month. But
So-
we do have our high school students on. Hunter and Devin are both on.
Great. Hunter, Devin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. For the general announcement, seniors will submit their senior portraits by November 2nd. The seniors also painted the shed on October 17th, and they were planning to take their senior picture as a class outside on that Monday. I don't remember what date it was. A small group of students volunteered at Trigger Trunk on October 17th. The World Language Club, National Honor Society, and Student Council all put up trunks for the event. The World Language Club is signing up to go to a virtual Day of the Dead show on November 1st. Typically, they travel as a group to Yukon for dinner and a show,